Hi, I'm Gina Buell. I'm a sixth-generation restaurateur, and I've got a passion for food, service, and people. Join me while we explore the taste of Lake. Hi, I'm Gina Buell. Welcome to a special edition of Taste of Lake. We're here in the Villages, which is the home of two of my restaurants, City Fire American Oven and Bar, and I'm really proud to be announcing our third location, which is Honest John's Whiskey and Provisions, and that's going to be opening at the end of May. We are here in location at actually City Fire Lake Sumter Landing. And what City Fire is about, City Fire is a celebration of the immigrant generation, the GI generation, those generations that really built American ideology. You know, it all started with when we bought the first City Fire. It was actually Urban Flats. And when we went to change it over to City Fire, my father and I were sitting back, and we were going back and forth because I did not like the name City Fire. I was like, what does that mean? It sounds like Urban Flats. It's not, it's not right. And we were at lunch at my parents' house, and because every Sunday, you know, that's what Latin families do. We go have spaghetti and meatballs at my mom's house. And so my father and I were going back and forth about the name. My brother was there, my mom, and my husband, and we were just all talking about the name. And so here comes my daughter, who was 4 years old at the time, and she says, Mommy, she hands me my iPad and says, Mommy, I need the Princess Pony app, and so I need your passcode. And my father was so amazed that his 4-year-old granddaughter could work an iPad better than him that it started us talking about the different generations and what my children's generation has to deal with, what we grew up with, what my parents grew up with, what my great-grandparents grew up with, and, you know, obviously my grandparents. And my father started telling the story of how we got into the restaurant business. And, you know, I'm a sixth-generation restaurateur. We started in the United States with my great-grandfather. He came over from Spain and landed in Cuba because he ran out of money, and he really wanted to get to the United States. So he was working in a bar as kind of a bouncer, and he would, you know, be a bar back, bartend sometimes. Well, this guy from the United States, from Ybor City, came over, and he was kind of protecting the guy because the guy was drinking, and he was about to get attacked by this gang of boys. And so my great-grandfather made sure he got to his hotel room all right, took care of him. And the guy looks at my grandfather and says, you want to go to the United States? Well, you be ready at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to take you. And, you know, my great-grandfather, he pretty much cried himself to sleep that night. He thought, there's no way this guy's going to remember. He was so drunk. Well, the next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, there he is. So he came over, landed in Ybor City, and worked in the cigar factory, in this guy's cigar factory, for years till he saved up his money. And he basically opened a little restaurant called La Fonda. Now, La Fonda in Spanish means the restaurant. So while we're great restaurant operators, maybe not so good on marketing. But right next to La Fonda was a restaurant called the Columbia Bar. The Columbia Bar, around Prohibition, was going to go out of business. So my great-grandfather got together with the family that owned the Columbia Bar, and my great-grandfather said, listen, my background is in fine dining. Let's open a fine dining Spanish restaurant, to which the Columbia restaurant was born. So our two families worked together for several years until about 1939, when there were basically too many mouths to feed out of that one restaurant. So my family, the Garcia family, sold the interest in the Columbia and went down the street and bought a restaurant called Las Novedades. Now, Las Novedades was the very first restaurant to ever open in Ybor City. In 1890, Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders actually rode their horses into Las Novedades, and it is called the Charge of the Yellow Rice Brigade. And you can see it right on the historical sign of the building that's still there today. Las Novedades was the very first restaurant in the state of Florida to win an award for excellence on a national stage. Again, Las Novedades was handed down generation to generation, from my great-grandfather to my grandfather and to my father. Then my dad went off to college, went to Cornell University, and graduation day, he's got the cap, he's got the gown on, he is just so excited, can't wait to get back from Cornell University, the very best hotel and restaurant school in the nation, to go home and show his dad everything he learned and take Las Novedades to the next level. Well, that day my grandfather looked at him and said, you know, we really need to get into this fast food business. My dad thought, he's like, are you freaking kidding me right now? So my dad, being a good son, we bought 2 failing Burger Kings in Orlando. This was pre-Mickey Mouse. And my dad built them to 67 of the highest volume Burger Kings in the United States. When my father would pick me up from daycare, we would drive back and forth between the 2 Burger Kings, and you know, I would be in the stores. I think they even have a picture of me with a French fry in my mouth and in a little tiny playpen behind one of the Burger Kings, or not behind one of the Burger Kings, actually in the back. But my dad would talk about business with me, and that's where I got my love of it. And so one time he went to a Burger King convention in Miami, and I had a fit. My mom was like, what is going on? What is wrong? And I'm like, he's going to Urami, because it was Miami. So I said it was Urami. And then I said, he won't know what to do without me. I was absolutely convinced at the age of 4 that my father couldn't live without me. Spending my younger years in the back of the house of a Burger King, I basically could make a Whopper before I could walk. They would put the pickle buckets up and a board, and I would just go down the line making Whoppers. But that's kind of how I got my start. Then I went to school, went to college, graduated from Florida State University with a hotel and restaurant degree, go Noles. And then when I came back, I actually went to work for somebody else for a while, and didn't really want to come back and work for my dad. I wanted to do it on my own. But what happened was I was in Boca Raton working for a different company, and our Burger King, our Burger King Davgar spun off and did Miami Subs. And I got a phone call from the president of the Miami Subs division asking me to come home. And so I actually came home without my dad even really realizing it. So I came home, showed up for work, and I opened 30 Miami Subs with Scott Visacca, who is our operating partner here in the Villages. Yeah, I guess the best way to tell you what we're all about is to tell you the story about Burger King Corporation. So Burger King Corporation comes in. They want my father to change his recipe for his croissant. They wanted to use this Whirl product instead of butter. And my dad said, no, absolutely not. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna make 2 croissants, if you can tell us the difference, we'll let you continue to use the butter. So my dad tasted them. You know what? He really couldn't tell the difference. The guy says, good, then you're gonna use our product. And my dad said, no, absolutely not. And the guy's like, why? He said, well, because every time, every morning, that 16-year-old kid that is in our kitchen that's unwrapping that butter, that says quality to them. And that makes my people proud. And when my people are proud, they show that to our guests. And so, no, I'm not gonna go to an inferior product, period. Burger King Corporation backed down. And then later, they threatened to disapprove one of my father's very close friends. They threatened to disapprove his company as a distributor for all of Burger King Corporation. So at that point, my dad said, you know, it's not worth it. So we basically sold. That's when he was done with Burger King. We sold our Burger Kings. And our Burger Kings, when we owned the Orlando, actually Central Florida, North Florida, and South Georgia, those 67 Burger Kings were averaging $1.6 million. Now Burger King is averaging $900,000. But you know, it's not just about the quality, it's about your people. Your people are the most important thing you have. The decisions that your people make in your restaurants every single day are the most important things. There's nothing that we can say in a boardroom that will affect your guests as much as what your people say. On Friday nights, my mom and dad used to travel around to the Burger Kings because they didn't want the managers working Friday nights to feel like they were out there on their own working on the weekends. So they would go travel around and visit all the stores. Well, they didn't want to go out for a full dinner after that. They just wanted to maybe share an appetizer, get a dessert and some coffee, glass of wine, whatever. And but there was no place in Orlando, or anywhere for that matter, in the early 80s that you could do that. When you went out to dinner, you went out for the typical 3-course meal. So they decided to come up with one. So that's how Pebbles was born. Pebbles was for the casual gourmet. And right next to Burger King number 18, my dad bought this property. And it was an end of a strip mall in Longwood, Florida. And they bought the first bay of that strip mall was our test kitchen. Every single thing that the guests saw, the guests tasted, went through that test kitchen. And they had, I believe, 400 of their closest friends come in and give us opinions from everything from the china to the renderings of the building. They even chose the name. The family, we narrowed them down to 5 names from the William Morris Agency, and then we let the guests vote on the name from those 5, and our guests came up with Pebbles for the casual gourmet. So Pebbles was designed by our guests for our guests. We opened the very first Pebbles in Longwood, and we opened 7 Pebbles after that. When I came back, I was director of training and development, wrote all of our manuals, all of our procedures, things like that. Then along with the Pebbles, we also opened 2 Harvey's Bistros, and then Manuals on the 28th. Manuals on the 28th was was dedicated to my grandfather, who died in 1998. I'm sorry, he died in 1988. Manuals on the 28th, we won 10 consecutive 4 Diamond Awards under Benj Ray as general manager. And you're gonna meet Benj. Benj is still with us to this day. There's only 1,000 restaurants in the United States that gets a 4 Diamond Award. So we were pretty proud of that. Okay, so I've told y'all about my past, my story, and now I'm gonna bring you to current day. We've got our two city fires here in the Villages, one in Lake Sumter Landing, one in Brownwood. We're just about to open Honest John's Whiskey and Provisions, which is our new concept that we are so proud of. And then we've also been asked to be the franchisee for Wahlburgers in the state of Florida, which we're also very proud of. That's such an honor. And I am driving down the road trying to plan out how in the world I'm gonna get Honest John's open and get 20 Wahlburgers open in the state of Florida. And I get this phone call from Bill Mathias. And Bill Mathias is our equipment guy. We buy all of our restaurant equipment from him and have for years. So normally Bill talks to my husband, Mike. But I knew Mike was playing golf with some villagers, so I was like, uh-oh, there must be a problem. So I pick up the phone, I'm like, is everything okay with our equipment for Honest John's? He's like, yes, it is. I'm like, okay, well, do we owe you money? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, then why are you calling me? And he says, well, I need you to do me a favor. And I said, anything for you, Bill. And he goes, I need you to host a TV show. And I looked at him, I said, Bill, I've got Honest John's opening. I've got 20 Wahlburgers to open. There is no freaking way that I can do this for you. And he's like, yes. He goes, you know, you've got the best personality for it. We're really excited. And I'm like, all right, I tell you what, I'll go in talk to the people at Lakefront TV. So right before we get to the Mission Inn, and I bring Benj Ray with me, because I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm bringing Benj with me. So Benj and I walk in, and I first meet Dr. Anna Marie, and she's telling me all about the show, and I'm sitting there like, there's nothing. I am just going, okay, okay. Next thing I know, I'm getting mic'd up. And I was like, what is happening? So while I'm talking to Dr. Anna Marie, I'm starting to backpedal like, okay, I gotta get out of this because there's no way I can do this. And I look at Benj and I say, Benj, you know, when are we opening Honest John's? I was about to say, there's no way I can do this. And Benj, my little rat, looks at me and says, oh, we got Honest John's, you're good. You go ahead and go right to it, which is all Dr. Anna Marie needed to hear. Next thing I know, I'm mic'd up and in front of a camera. And I'm like, oh God. So the Mission Inn, I get better later, okay? But I will tell you that I've had lots of fun with Stu and with Trent, and Charlie is hysterical. And you'll see them in the Hemingway's video. You'll see the camera crew. And Dr. Anna, I tell you what though, when Dr. Anna's here, like she's sitting right behind that camera right now, she makes me so nervous. It's fun. I get to meet lots of great people. I get to see, you know, the backs of houses of other restaurants, and I just get to share people's stories, and that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I know that our show is following the back of the house with Valerie Hart, who is an icon in the industry, and I just hope that I can do her justice. It's been great. There's really been no lows. There's just been a bunch of highs, actually. And I'm really excited to do the feature on Honest John's to kind of show everybody what opening a restaurant is about, because I don't really think people really realize what goes into it. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, Wahlburgers, for those who don't know and aren't familiar with the TV show that's on A&E, is a concept that is founded by Mark and Donnie and Paul Wahlberg. And it is a hybrid concept. It's a gourmet burger joint that is 20% quick service and 80% full service with a full bar. And I have to say that when we were asked to go up there, I was like, okay, here we go. A bunch of Hollywood people that are playing restaurateur. And so I was skeptical, I really was. But when we went up there and we met Paul and we saw that operation and saw the quality and saw the values and how they treat their people and how they treat their guests, and I was so impressed. And we all were, my dad, my husband, everybody was, we were so impressed, and we were so honored to be asked to be the franchisees for the state of Florida. That it's rare that you find another company that has the same values, cares about being involved in the community, cares about their people, you know, cares about quality, and cares about making their people proud. We have got a plan for growth. Where the first 2 or 3 are going to be in Orlando, then I believe we're going to Tampa, then Miami, and who knows? We've got to fill the state with at least 20 of them. So they'll be all over. So now that I've told you a little bit about me and my history, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Taste of Lake. We're premiering a new show every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, and we're going to take you all throughout Lake County, seeing the front of the house, the back of the house, getting great interviews with great restaurateurs. You can even win your own Taste of Lake. If you go on Facebook, like us, and leave a comment, you can win a wine-paired dinner for 4 at Honest John's Whiskey and Provisions, a 25-person catered dinner from Burke's Barbecue, or the grand prize, a weekend getaway for 2 at the Mission Inn. So get out there and get a taste of Lake. I hope you enjoyed the special edition of Taste of Lake. It was a lot of fun sharing my family history and a little bit about who we are. For more information about Taste of Lake, go to tasteoflake.us. You can see some fun behind the scenes and a little bit of maybe even some bloopers. Sit back and enjoy a Taste of Lake.